Hi there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Market, here with 10 cards that I think are undervalued in the Pioneer format based upon how much play they are seeing. So if you check over here at MTG Goldfish in the Pioneer meta, of course there is going to be a huge spread between the decks. So you can see that there's only Izzet Phoenix there with 3.55% of the meta. That's because most of the lists are coming from these leagues, and how the data is accumulated from leagues is they have to be different enough to actually register on this list than another deck that has gone 5-0. So any duplicate decks get thrown out. There could be 100 decks that went 5-0 that were the exact same carbon copy, and only one will show up on this list. So we are going to need some more data for bigger tournaments, but the good news is if you actually click on one of these Pioneer leagues, there are just pages and pages. It'll actually crash your computer for a while until it loads all of the decks that actually went 5-0, which is a good sign, meaning this format is being played like crazy, and therefore you can kind of see the price changes going really, really quickly on MTGO, but also going quite quickly on paper. But there are some goodies in the mix here that haven't gone up yet, and for this video I'm just going to name the top 10 cards that I think are undervalued in the format. So let's start off with the first one. This one is Entanglement Melody, and it's not seeing too much play, but after looking at the meta and looking at many of the win conditions or cards that are being used, this card feels pretty strong in the format. There are a lot of 1-drops and 2-drops that just get bigger over time, like Experimental 1 or Pelt Collector or Knight of the Ebon Legion or Warden of the First Trees that are right now seeing play. There's even cards like Voice Resurgence that isn't too bad to take, or Scavenging Oozes. With Entrancing Melody, I think this is going to be a premier card in the blue tempo and blue control decks as soon as people figure out that it is a great card for this Pioneer meta. So I like the price point at just 50 cents. I think it's extremely low right now. It is from Ixalan, so one of the sets that was most recently rotated. But Ixalan's not too terrible of a set because there just wasn't a lot of supply with this set to begin with. This was during one of the lulls of standard play. And again, if you compare this like Khans of Tarkir Return to Ravnica, I do not believe there's as much Ixalan supply out there for the Pioneer format. All right, on to the next one is Hour of Promise. This is just a card that I would invest in anyway because it's just a powerhouse in Commander. This goes and gets 2 lands, and Commander players eventually are going to figure out the power of this card that it can go get. If you're running a green-black deck, for example, you should be including Hour of Promise in every Golgari deck because it goes and gets the 1-2 punch of the Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth and the Cobble Coffers combo. So this is just a low price point for Hour of Promise to begin with, and then when you factor in the decks, the Golos decks have now decided that Hour of Promise, especially with Teferi, is probably a better win condition than Golos to find the lands. If you're running the Gates version too, you can instant speed the Hour of Promise with Teferi. So this is a pretty potent card, and I think that the more lands that are printed in this format, the better and better and better Hour of Promises can become. The price point of this is way too low from Hour of Devastation for a double, triple dipping card that is a very good casual card in the Commander and now a very competitive card. So I think this card is poised to go up. Next up is Anger of the Gods. I'm surprised this card is as low. It had a reprinting in Iconic Masters. It is finally starting to go up, but the 275 does seem pretty low. This is another card that still sees a lot of play in Modern. And so now with the double dipping with Pioneer and Modern, the Anger of Gods I think is positioned to be a $5 card. If you actually look at other cards similar to this one that see as much play in sideboards, they have already doubled up, and this one has not. And I think it's mainly just because of that Iconic Masters reprint, but this should be enough of the data that's coming in with all the people that are running this in sideboards. This should be enough to push the Anger of Gods up to going up. All right, so on to the next one. I typically don't like to invest in recent cards, and this is Domri, Anarch of Bolas, but wow, there are a ton of lists that are running Domri, Anarch of Bolas. If we scroll down here with the Pioneer, these Gruul Agros, Gruul Eldrazi, a lot of these red-green lists, that's a lot of numbers. Remember, there's not many weeks that we've had with the you can see it also sees quite a bit of play in Standard. So I know War of the Spark. I know there's a bazillion of these out there. It's just a rare. Typically don't like rares from War of the Spark, but you can look at other cards like the Dread Horde Arcanist that rares do have the potential of going up. And just check out those green-red lists. There was plenty in each one of the leagues that were running, 3 to 4 of these in each of the deck with Domri, Anarch of Bolas. So it's hitting that sweet spot with the format. I think the can't be countered +1 is pretty decent. Just the Anthem effect of +1/+0 is also pretty decent. And the fight is very relevant in this format with the big Stompy Gruul cards. On to the next one is one of the cards I love to shill, which is Disallow, which has gone up, but it's up to the $5 mark. I like Disallow just because it's one of the most played cards in Commander. Go check it out. It's the most played card from 8th Revolt, and it just surprises me this card's low to begin with. The spread is pretty reasonable, with Card Kingdom paying $3.70 for this card. This is up to $4.96 and a $4.55 market price. But now it does seem like the blue controls are starting to incorporate Disallow. For a while they were going with Dovin's Veto and a few of the other counter spells, but Disallow is just everything you want it to be in this format with the countering of the activated ability, which is very, very relevant in this format. There are even Planeswalker negatives that you can counter with this. There are plenty of other activated creature abilities that this is a very versatile card for the Disallow. So it is going to be, in my opinion, the go-to counter spell in the next few weeks with these blue, and blue control was everywhere. If we do scroll down again, you can see many, many Pioneer decks. Look at all those Pioneer decks that are running the Disallow. So I think this one is poised to go up. I've been investing this just from Commander alone because this is one of the most played blue spells in Commander. I love the double dipping with Pioneer. Love this card. All right, so now we have a good one from Throne of Eldraine. I highly doubt this is going to go lower than $2. Castle Locthwain is seeing so much play in Pioneer. It's a lot easier to enable in Pioneer with the kind of mitigating the damage that's done by Castle Locthwain. You have like Siege Rhinos, you have Grey Merchant of Asphodels. You have a lot of ways to have that initial life gain to make Castle Locthwain worth it. Again, if we scroll down here, there's a lot of Pioneer decks. If this list continued to go, there'd be many, many more that are running the Castle Locthwain. And the difference between Standard and Pioneer is there are many decks that are running a full 4 playset of Castle Locthwains. If you're in the mono black decks like the mono black Vampires or the mono black Devotion, then there's no point not to use Castle Locthwain because the coming into play untapped is very, very reasonable. And this is just a card that helps you grind out versus the control-based deck. So I like the $2 price point. I have a hard time thinking this card is going to go down any lower. Card Kingdom is really pushing that at a $1.60 buy list of making sure that doesn't happen, meaning that they're actually selling quite a bit of cards. If they're selling it for $2.79 and have a $1.60 buy list, that means that there's not even that 50% spread on their sell versus buy list. That's always a good sign for a card going up. Now we get into the real good juicy stuff, which I have no clue why these cards are as cheap as they are. The first one is Atarka's Command. Yes, this did have a double up, but Atarka's Command is one of the premier cards in the format. There is no reason for me to believe this shouldn't be a $12 card. We have like Kolaghan's Command that's already in the 20s. I get it, Modern is pushing that up, but Atarka's Command is seeing much, much more play than that one because of how many red decks are just splashing for Atarka's Command. This is doing everything you want your go wide red deck to do. I've actually seen some other decks just splash in because it's so good with like Burning Tree Emissary to then cast it with that green. Other green decks are splashing red just for Atarka's Command. They give me all creatures +1/+1 and doing 3 damage to your opponent is huge in this format. The opponents can't gain life. It also comes into play every now and again. This is just a massively powerful card. You can see all the Pioneer decks that are running it with all the various Atarka Red, Gruul Aggro, Gruul Go Wide strategies, Gruul Blitz, Atarka. Definitely tons and tons of decks are running this and usually with Atarka's Command too, if they're running it, they run it as a 4 of. It's not like a 1 of or 2 of, it is a 4 of. Next up is Rest in Peace. Well, looks like the format is starting to find to be a graveyard-based format. Arclight Phoenix is the #1 deck right now, so a card like Rest in Peace is much better than using something like Grafdigger's Cage if you have the option to run Rest in Peace. What happens with Grafdigger's Cage is eventually the Phoenix player just finds a Braid, kills the Grafdigger's Cage, and then goes off. Also, I'd like to say that these Arclight Phoenix decks are more Thing in the Ice decks than they are Arclight Phoenix decks. Thing in the Ice is the big threat. Arclight Phoenix is the grind threat. So if you can actually shut down the Thing in the Ice via like a Fatal Push, then all you need is the Rest in Peace then to shut down the Arclight Phoenixes. So I think this will be a go-to graveyard, an anti-graveyard based spell. Plenty of decks are running graveyard strategies at the moment. There's even like Kethis combos that use the graveyard. And yeah, like I said, multiple other decks that do utilize some sort of or Delve or Delirium based strategy. So Rest in Peace, I think is going to go up. It's an all-time low, at least low for clear back until Yeah, the first of 2017, and it mainly had to do because of this Gideon spellbook reprint. But Gideon spellbooks are starting to become low. Speaking of which, I still do have some available. If you are a patron, you can still purchase the Gideon spellbooks for $14 a piece. So, I mean, right there, you get back $5 from the Rest in Peace. And if Rest in Peace does go up even more, I think those are great buys. But anyway, I think this is going to be a premier card. It's not going anywhere in Modern, too. You should see this trajectory start to go back up anyways. Alrighty, now on to two really, really good cards, and they're both currently in Standard. The first one is Lovestruck Beast. I have no clue why this card is not up to $2 now. It sees a ton of play in Standard. After Oko gets banned, it's going to see a ton of play in Standard. I think that Green-Black Adventures is the go-to green deck after the banning of Oko, as it has a nice matchup versus non-Oko decks. Like, it has a really good matchup versus Knights, has a really good matchup versus a lot of the control-based strategies. And the Lovestruck Beast is just a pivotal card in the Standard format. However, in Pioneer, this seems to be like one of the best things you can do is first turn Elvish Mystic into second turn Lovestruck Beast. And there are plenty of decks in Pioneer that are actually running that combo. I was surprised when I was looking through the list of how many Teamer decks, how many Naya decks, how many Jund decks, how many just mono green decks, how many different of these archetypes are running that combo, the 1-2 punch of the Elvish Mystic and the Lovestruck Beast. So this card is too low. It also is going in another really fun combo called Possibility Storms, which actually allows you to cheat out the Enter the Infinite by casting the instance side of the Lovestruck Beast to find the only. Actually, that's a sorcery with the Lovestruck Beast. So the sorcery goes and gets the. No, that goes and gets Enter the Infinite. Yep, that's exactly what it does. And you just go get Brigamos and then win the game. Anyway, if you haven't seen that deck, it's a pretty sweet deck. I might be building my own version of it here shortly to showcase. But anyway, I think this is way too low for a Standard card. It looks like Card Kingdom has upped their buy price. It's funny because at one point in time, Card Kingdom was actually selling this for $0.25, and I should have snagged them all up. I knew I need to get back in the swing of really doing the juggle. All right, so last but not least, definitely not least card is Sauron, Impious Bloodlord. This is a legit deck. It 8-0'd one of the challenges. It was the winning deck, I believe. It's actually 8-0'd twice by the same pilot. And this is a mono black devotion-ish strategy with Sauron, Impious Bloodlord, but mainly just a vampire base deck, where Sauron is really good still with the Champion of Dusk, bringing out the Champion of Dusk early, drawing cards. It just adds so much pressure. And then giving your creatures +1/+1 and Death Touch and Lifelink puts you ahead of the curve versus aggro decks. Is a very, very popular aggro-based format. And it can also be the Lightning Helix, just with the being able to sacrifice a vampire, actually, even then. So if you run even like the Elvish Mystic version, or Elvish Visionary version of the vampire, and then sack it to do Lightning Helix to something, you can then pump up your Knight of the Ebon Legion, hopefully, to get that 4 damage, then make that bigger. It's just a really good curve right now. Sees a ton of play. And what I like about Sauron, Impious Bloodlord is the more vampires that get printed in this format, the better and better and better and better Sauron, Impious Bloodlord gets. So I think this is way too low. It's an all-time low right now for its Core Set 2020. Core Set 2020 was dismally open, one of the worst pre-release attendance of all time. This is going to be a very, very expensive card if this deck does take off. And I mean, I would easily say $15 to $20 is where this card will settle. So there is my top 10 of the moment. There's even much more. It wasn't even hard to do this top 10 list. Let's go down again. Entanglement Melody, when it takes off, that people realize how well this card, or how good this card is with a lot of premier 1s and 2-drops. The Hour of Promise with the Golos Lands deck. The Anger of the Gods as the sweeper of choice to actually exile them permanently. Domri, Anarch of Bolas, because there's so many Gruul decks going around. The Disallow is a premier counterspell. The Castle Lockthwain is the premier mono black land. COS Command, so many aggro decks right now running it. Rest in Peace, Lovestruck Beast, and the Sauron, Impious Bloodlord. Again, most of these are just based upon the price point and how much they see play. And that's what you look at for cards you invest in. Hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Market. Thanks for watching.